Oh my, it's Kelly White.
Hey, it's James Van Prague.
What are you up to?
Thinking about changing the world.
Me too. We should do a show together.
What would it be about?
Let me show you.
The James and Kelly Show.
Oh, hi, I'm bird watching. Sorry.
That's right. I'm picking corn back here. So
I wasn't in my office. They were sitting here. They got to do that in the park. Hi, Kelly.
hi, James. Oh
I
my
miss you
gosh.
already.
I'm
That was the fastest trip on Earth, really.
fastest trip on earth, but it was so heavenly. We had the best time. We were
Did.
together. We were with your friend Marianne, who is now my new friend, who's just wonderful. We had just a great time. And then the party. And let me just tell everybody about your gardens because they
Oh, yeah.
haven't had the opportunity to see your gardens. They've heard you talk about them, but everybody, I'm going to tell you what, these gardens are fantastic. There was a moon garden. Let me see if I can get them all. The Hawaiian garden, which
Well,
was,
that's
they
the
were
word.
all amazing. Oh, the picking garden, the cutting
Shade garden,
garden,
picking garden, my
vegetable
garden.
garden. It was unbelievable. It's just,
Don't forget Paradise Park.
oh, Paradise Park. Okay, let me
The
just
swing
say
set.
this. It was phenomenal. The plants and the way everything is done and
Thanks.
the energy. I mean, it was
A lot of
phenomenal.
people commented on the energy. I mean, they didn't know what I did, and they said, "Wow, the energy here was great." And
Well,
your friend Shirley,
well,
Dr.
Shirley. Okay.
She goes, "Hi, I can't go any further." The
Well,
energy
she
is
was
like,
walking in and she said, "Look at this energy, it's amazing." No, it was really
"Thank you, sweetheart.
phenomenal. What a great party too. It was
It was
so
a
much
great
fun.
party. It
We
really,
had a
really
great
was. Yeah,
time.
it was really fun. It was great to be with you and be with other people. And I
Yeah.
kind of like I like being together with people, but I kind of like a smaller, more intimate type of situation. I'm used to that
Yeah.
now with COVID and all that.
Yeah, that's true. But I thought everybody that was there was
It
incredible.
was fun. But I had to close the
Yeah.
house down and we're going
Oh,
down the
oh,
stairs.
I remember.
I was exhausted.
Well, it was we stayed up late too.
We did, didn't we?
Oh,
I would let everybody know we have two very special people on the show tonight, and they've been on the show before.
mhm.
And Kelly and Kevin Russell, and Kelly is my yoga instructor, who's incredibly extraordinaire, and
Yeah.
Kevin is her lovely gentleman. Where they explain to you what they do, but in this field of, I guess Kelly, you know more about this than I would in therapy, and relationship therapy, but I wouldn't put this in that category because it's a
No.
relationship. But they'll tell us. But they two very different people, two very star seeds.
Mhm.
And Danavia, who my good friend
Yep.
Danavia, who great friend of mine, she's so beautiful. She
Yeah.
looked at Kelly and she said, "That's an angel." I said, "I
Oh
know."
yeah. For sure.
Yeah,
For sure.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh
And
my
Kevin is in
gosh.
his own little orbit, I gotta say, really.
Oh my
So tonight's
gosh.
about relationships and some very interesting insights for everybody. So should we invite?
Yes.
And first of
Well,
all, wait, Kelly, you want to tell us about our? Do we have to? All
I
right.
just want to say a couple of
Astrology.
things. I just want to
The
say a couple of
astrology
things about
things are moving.
astrology
Yes. What's going
because
on?
during your show today, a lot of people were anxious and a lot of people had a lot of questions about it. So I just want to say a couple minutes here of
I'm writing it down. Yep.
we have 5 planets in retrograde still. The 5 planets, the big ones. Jupiter's in retrograde, Saturn's in retrograde, Pluto's in retrograde, Neptune's in retrograde, and Uranus is in retrograde. And those are big planets. On September 27th, Mercury joins them and goes retrograde
Oh God.
in Libra. So then we'll have 6. But what I do want to say, and I know we have a lot of big things going on with Ida, Hurricane Ida, that's huge.
Yeah.
Afghanistan, that's huge. So a couple of big things that I do want to say that Pluto in retrograde always is about they don't call it the planet of destruction for no reason, so it knocks things down, okay.
I didn't know
And
that. Wow.
yeah, and then Uranus means radical change. Now, isn't it interesting? We have Kelly and Kevin on tonight for radical relationship change, right? So it actually means radical change. So this is what we're doing. Now, the other thing I wanted to address is that Chiron, the wounded healer, is also retrograde. Now, that is a comet, and that comet sits between Saturn and Uranus. And it's in Aries. So Aries means what about me? It's about me. And so when you when Chiron is retrograde, it's about going into yourself and doing the work on yourself, looking at your traumas, looking at your wounds, looking at everything. And that causes anxiety. So when
Mm.
people were asking you today, why am I so anxious? These planets are in big areas causing a lot of destruction, change, and anxiety. But
And
here's what
we're
I
forced to we're forced to look into ourselves.
we're
We're forced
forced
to.
to look into it. So
Right.
interesting enough, on September 6th, so on Labor Day, September 6th, Labor Day in the United States, that is when we have a new moon in Virgo. And Virgo's about health, this and
Oh God,
self-awareness. Now,
that's good.
this new moon is very interesting because it's next to the fixed star Coxa, Coxa, which means hip. Now, what's so interesting about that fixed star is that star is about psychic ability and prophecy. Now, if we take the month of September and we go back, September is when you go to school to learn, right?
Right.
So this would be for all those people that have psychic interests, that mediumship. They want to learn about being healers, especially with that Aries, Chiron and Aries retrograde. This is the best time to take classes in September. This is the time to do it. So I know, James, you have all those amazing classes at your school.
Kelly, we do have usually, and this year we will because of all this. And I might
Mhm.
ask you to give me a little bit to put on that notice. That we have back to school sale. So
Yeah.
we'll be doing that. Yes, for
I
sure.
think that's a really great idea because
Good
September is
opportunity.
when you go back to to school. And then on September 14th, we have a really interesting situation too, because the sun is in Virgo and it's opposing Neptune. So the
Mhm.
sun shines things up, it brightens things, it makes you become aware of things. Neptune wants to go to sleep. Neptune wants to stay in its dreamy place. That
And what is
time,
it, Kelly? Is it in Taurus?
it's actually in Pisces.
It's in
Yeah,
Pisces, which
so
is the
it's going
opposite.
to be exactly, and it's
Mm.
gonna be like kind of a tougher time. And I think the last 2 weeks in September are going to be a little more, as we say, I'm going to say it radical, but I'm going to tell you what it's all about. It's all about, it means this. It's not about who am I, it's about who am I becoming? Who
Oh,
am I
wow.
becoming? And
Wow.
so this is what, remember, if we use the lens of our soul lens of why we incarnate, we are here to grow. Well, we're in a growth period. Let's say that.
So, Kelly, can I just advise something? You tell me what you think.
Yeah.
Everyone that's listening to this or watching this right now, because of that movement, if we got to find out who you are, take out a piece of paper, a pad, and a pen, and write down who you want to be.
Yes,
Right. So,
who-
in 5 years, you are that person. It's basically what you
absolutely.
want.
That's absolutely right. This is the time to do it. This is the time. And if you have
Okay?
a lot of traumas to work on, you can absolutely take our class, Roots of Healing Part 2. That's on September 25th. And we're offering 15% on that. And that's all about generational um, programming, the things that you would have come in with your
Patterns.
ancestors, patterns. It's going to be an extraordinary class, and you do not have to have taken part one to take it. But this is September's the great time for learning, who am I becoming? Who am I and who am I becoming?
And one more thing, because people are freaking out, I'm sure, when they
Yeah,
hear this. So,
sorry.
how do they handle? What's your idea about how they can handle all these
Oh,
retrogrades right now?
I'm going to tell you
How do
right. I'll tell you. Great question. Guided meditations. If you don't know
okay?
how to meditate, do a guided meditation. And I know on your site, James, you have a lot of ones to choose from. A guided meditation. It
Wow.
gets you in that zone of calming yourself and learning who your higher self is, and it's
It centers you, and our
centers
guest
you.
tonight,
Hmm.
Kelly, is one of the best meditators. Actually, we're doing a show together. Her and I. We're going to do a soul care because her meditations is the best I've ever experienced. I mean, besides
Oh my
brand wise,
gosh.
Kelly is just great, and there are
Wow.
insights I've never experienced before. And I'm old, so I was like, "Wow, Kelly, we got
Wow.
to do a show together." So we're going to.
Oh,
So
that
yeah,
would
and
be
I
great.
think what's helped me a lot, Kelly, like we talked about when you were here, surrender.
Oh,
Just surrender.
surrender.
I can't get it all done at once. I'm gonna be late for an appointment. I can't help that. It is what it is. It's all that it is.
Yes.
It's such a waste of energy when you worry about these things. It is
Right.
what it is. That's all you can do is your best, and that's it. Don't
But
get
isn't that growth for you to get to that point?
yes,
Yeah.
yes. It took a
Well,
long time, but
well,
yes.
I hear you. I hear you, brother. Yes.
Well, I'm excited about these two guys. Anything
Me
else,
too.
Kelly? Or
No, that's it. I'm done.
and you
Just
have their introduction you would like to read to people, or
actually, I don't have it,
no? Good.
but
Let's let them talk about themselves
I
because
think
I
it's a
think that's the
great
best one.
idea.
So please, everybody, please welcome Kevin and Kelli Russell.
Yay!
Yay!
Hi.
The adorable couple, I like to say.
So true. It was so great to get to meet you last week in James. It was
You
wonderful.
too, in real life.
In real life.
I know, it's so
Yeah.
special.
Dance.
We got
So-
to dance, we got to boogie.
It was fun. I have pictures of you guys dancing. So
Yeah.
Now,
tell
you
us.
guys, you've been on separately, so how can you describe, I guess, your individual and together? How do you work with relationships and so forth? Now, what's your background?
Yeah,
Yeah.
for me, I started out in marriage and family therapy. I did not get licensed. I got my master's and decided I wanted to go into yoga and meditation. Did that for about a decade. And then we'll actually talk about one of the precipitating factors that got us into this work was our relationship, our daughter.
Yeah.
But I ended up going into Psych-K and emotion code therapy. So it's psychological kinesiology and emotional energy healing. And I'll let Kevin explain more about what he does.
I don't know, James. What do I do?
You were a designer, right? An architectural designer at one point?
I was in the UI UX interactive design field for about 20 years, and the universe had other ideas for me. And I took the accumulation of everything I've been interested in throughout my life, and it really distilled down into a massive enlightenment experience, is the only way I can describe it. A lot of the natural talents, the natural capacity that every one of us have really started to increase and accelerate. So intuition, clairvoyance, clairessence, clairaudience, working with energy that has transitioned from this life, working with non-corporeal energy, working with clients that are having issues with themselves, issue with family. It's really, my approach is looking at everything from the energetic level, and that's where really the root of everything.
And Kevin, let me interrupt you by asking you, last time I think you were on, you described your wake up. Was that your Kundalini rising? Is that what you described that, or was it different? Or is it your death experience?
No, yeah, not a near-death experience. I mean, the actual experience was like a supernova going off in my head.
Supernova going off.
Yeah.
It's great.
So I'm not sure where that would fall on the spectrum of
Your higher self just saying hi. Yes.
Yeah, it was literally like, oh, by the way, I'm here and you're up.
Excuse me.
You know? Yeah. So I help people with energy transformation. I get insight, I get downloads, I get knowings in sessions, sometimes not. New tools, new approaches, new frameworks for addressing and qualifying and quantifying energy to be able to work with it more efficiently. And yeah, so energy technician, energy janitor,
And how do you
clairvoyant,
guys work
intuitive.
together? How do you put your gifts together and your skill set, I should say, and together and meld?
Yeah, I think what we've come to understand, and people that have worked with both of us, I'm a great crossover between those that might be used to a talk therapy that are just starting to get into this world, getting into the subconscious, getting into more of the spiritual healing modalities. And then Kevin is kind of like a deep excavator. He goes far into other realms where it's people that have tethers to other family members that have passed on, sometimes those that are experiencing what we might term dark energy, or they're having problems in their life that it's just, gosh, it's hard to, it's almost like I'm the little baby step. And then when people are ready for some massive transformation and they are not afraid to speak the language of the spiritual world as well as energy work, they go right to Kevin. So
And I
he's
got
like
the word quantum
advanced.
with you, Kevin. I don't know, this
Yeah.
came into my head. Quantum came into my head for you.
Yes.
Yeah, and that was so. And Kelly's being very generous, but not to discount her work because it is as transformative. It is as impactful. I like to just say Kelly goes in with a scalpel and I go in with an excavator. Is really kind of the
Actually,
difference.
somebody in here is calling you an energy janitor.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
it's like I'm
Right.
energy technician, energy janitor. You know, it's just
we've
it's
played with terms
helping
like
clean
that.
it
A
up.
detective,
Yeah.
it's like just figuring out what's going on, what's causing that, transforming that energy into something better and different.
But it
Probably
really
a lot of
is.
Scorpio in your chart. Probably a lot of Scorpio, right?
I think
Kelly?
Okay.
I do. Kevin has a lot of Virgo, and
I'd have to look.
I have the Scorpio rising and a Taurus moon myself. Yeah.
And
Wow.
James, their birthdays are next to each other, and then mine. It's like 1,
Yeah.
2, 3.
September 16th, September 17th, and
20th.
Yeah, we're all Virgos
Isn't
here.
that interesting? Oh,
But James, to your point, the quantum was my entry point that really coalesced science, philosophy, theology, spirituality, New Age, self-help, and really unified everything. And that's the approach I take. It's a holistic, unified energy approach to whatever's going on. So it could be, there's a chakra imbalance, and that's one aspect of energy transformation that I facilitate. It's just one component of our energetic makeup, of our energetic
He'll
framework.
check meridian system, adrenals,
Energy connections, energy bodies.
body, mind, spirit connections, connection to source, all these.
Polarity on the quantum field.
So yeah.
I help people realign with or get to a more positive polarity if they've been knocked off, of that aspect.
and that would
Yep.
be working with people who have been very negative
And traumatic.
or trauma
Right.
or
Yeah, so my only, it's a real low bar for it's not a huge entry point for working with me specifically. I only ask that, one, you have to be ready for change. Like, if you're not ready for change, the resistance in your system is going to work counter to whatever we do. So the desire for change, and the openness and willingness to change and shift, whatever arises. And then also be open to the work, be open to the approach to whole system wellness, is that we're coming at it from the energetic aspect. So it might not be, sometimes it's invisible right away. Sometimes it is a quantum shift in the session. I've had people that are kind of at that place where they've maybe been knocking at a door for a little bit. And then there's a configuration that I help with that just helps them open to it, and they're like, all the colors just got more colorful. Everything got, I feel more peaceful. I feel more balanced, and it's just, my vision just shifted. And it's not for everyone, but that's kind of one of those examples of somebody who's been doing the work. They're on their own journey, and it's just, we slipstream together and walk shoulder to shoulder. And it is a true collaboration as well. I think for both of us, because
I've had both of your sessions, so I agree with that's why you're here, because I was just blown away. But I've had a lot of energy sessions with different people over the years, and you're the two best I've ever experienced together. So that's why you're here to share.
And it's not openness. What was it? I just lost it. Thank you. That was very kind.
But
there's
No, but I know you're talking about. We said the first party we had that same thing. What worked?
Yeah.
oh my gosh, I have a question here from Kim Ann Snodgrass. She says, what is the difference with a meridian and a chakra?
Meridian system is the energy body. So this would be more a Chinese medicine approach. We have thousands of meridians that run through the body, the system, that connect to organs. So checking to see that those are in balance. And chakra system, Kevin works with the 10,
12.
Yeah, I'm familiar with working with 7, but you work with a few more than I do.
So one of the entry points that I come to most things with is looking through the lens of a scientific postulate called Occam's razor, which is the simplest answer is usually the right answer. So I always look for an exercise in reduction. I want to reduce the labels. I want to reduce the variety. So for me, the 12 primary chakras are meridians. So chakra meridian for me in that regard is interchangeable. There are additional Chinese meridians that have different points throughout the body. And so the same way as I had a conversation with someone recently, and they were looking at, well, what's the difference between the subconscious and the unconscious? And for me, everything that we experience bodily, except for our heart space, our quantum love engine, and our conscious mind, is the subconscious mind body.
Maybe I can use that to switch us into how we came to this
relationship
work.
Yeah.
Wait, we got to have a question about the three of these 12 chakras. We know 7 of them. What's 8, 9, 10, 11, 12?
So once we get above the crown, and actually 10 is a little bit out of order. 10 is actually a grounding chakra. The 12, I believe it's universal consciousness. There's an electromagnetic field. So that's 12 and 11, and I could be getting these labeled wrong. So if anybody, I've got them listed, and I don't necessarily go into detail. I just look, this is the thing. Is it balanced? Is it over-energized or under-energized? So 12, 11, 9 is, I'm completely blanking, and I do apologize.
You have a workshop, Kevin. It's okay.
There you go. Exactly. Thank you, James. So it's 12, 11, 9, 8 that are kind of in the field, but
Above the crown.
above the
chakra.
crown. And then we've got 7, 6, 5, heart is 4, solar plexus.
That's a really dumb question. Not really dumb. just
No,
dumb.
no such
I
thing.
know.
So in your work, and you guys work, and I know you have the workshop coming in September 12th, correct?
The 17th.
17th. All right.
Yeah.
Okay, 17th, which is perfect, Kelly. It's astrologically, we were just talking about
You
changes.
said that.
It's perfect. What are you going to cover in that workshop, please? We want to know.
Well, yeah, we wanted to talk tonight
Yeah.
about 3 of those because we focus on the radicals: radical energy, radical balance, radical acceptance, radical honesty, radical freedom, radical responsibility. But there are 3 really important ones to relationships. And the first one that I think is really big is just radical acceptance. And what we see a lot with people is when they're in an argument, whether it's a child and a parent, whether it's 2 siblings, whether it's a romantic relationship, often we see people that are like this, like, why can't you be more like me, is the underlying issue, you know? And number 1 is just accepting the difference. I was talking to Kevin before we started today, and like, I'm one of these people that I like to say something, like if we go to a restaurant and the steak is cooked incorrectly, I'll say, waiter, I asked for medium rare. This is well done. Could you please bring another? Whereas Kevin's like, I don't want to say anything. You know, I don't really want to rock the boat. No big deal.
I'll eat it. No big deal.
Yeah. Or if AT&T raises our bill $50, I'll say, well, this is outrageous. Someone must do something about this. And Kevin's like, whatever, it'll work itself out. And before, it used to bother me. I would say, why don't you be more, you know,
why don't you take charge
yeah,
more? Why doesn't this bother you? Like, what's going on?
And you know, there were times where I was like, why don't you stand up for this or stand up for that? And after doing a lot of this transformative work, I realized I'm really good at this. I really like doing this. It doesn't bother me at all. I'm that type of personality. Whereas Kevin really helps me, like in the past when I've worked for an employer and maybe something went a way that I didn't like it and I'd compose an email and Kevin would read over my shoulder and say, maybe could we soften that up a little bit? And then after reading it, I'd say, you're absolutely right. Like, this is just going to shut people down rather than open people up. And he'd help me change a couple words and it would be much more palatable and beautiful. So instead, we learn how to communicate more like this, or to just honor each other's differences. Like where you have these certain strengths, I'm strong over here and you're stronger over here. So instead of saying, well, why can't you do it the way I do it? Why can't you be like me? We learn to adjust that, and it changed everything.
They enhance each other. They really enhance each other.
It is. I know.
The really interesting thing is part of that, I interpreted that as just creating space with Kelli kind of releasing that need or releasing whatever it was to have me be away. There was more space for me to actually be that way. So as we, you know, that was the starting point where it's like, you know, we were right there. Like, why can't you be more like me? Yeah. Friction and resistance. And then as we started to really excise a lot of our conditioning and programming and stuff from mom and dad and stuff that we accumulated in this lifetime, coming back more to our wholeness, back more to our true self, our center, and having a clearer view and understanding and feeling of what that actually is, I started to feel more confident. I started to be more comfortable in my skin and standing up for certain things that I would have just, you know, let go before. And it's a very interesting evolution where almost the release is the accelerator. But so often we don't recognize that that's an option because we're either in resistance or in attachment to something. And the more in resistance or in attachment we are to anything, the more that thing's going to be sticking to in or around us.
And we harbor resentments towards people. Like my father, he was this guy that worked 9 to 5. He'd come home and throw the ball for our dog for a while. And then mom would make dinner. We'd have dinner together, but he'd eat just twice as quick as my mom and I. And he'd leave the table, go into the bedroom and watch sports on TV. And then he'd have another sports team on the radio. And then he'd have the sports page on a newspaper in front of him. And This was my life growing up.
Wow.
But when I was 18.
You don't like sports, Kelli.
Dude, actually, how did you know that? I don't.
Just figured.
And then, so my dad, he's a real tough guy, but one night he said, you know, I don't feel right. I think I need to go to the emergency room. And an intern actually looked at his chart and said, there is a little hole in your aorta. And they called in the doctors and they rushed him to surgery. And it changed my dad's life. He started eating well. He started exercising and running. He became a different person. And he eventually became a track coach. And we would call each other on the phone all through my 20s and 30s. And he would tell me these inspiring stories of how he's coaching these young men and women in high school, and the way that he would give them words of wisdom and how they received him. And they gave him these plaques at the end of the year and wrote messages. You're the most, inspirational person in my life. You changed my life. But I started harboring resentment because I thought, I needed that dad. Where were you when I was a teenager? So I remember being 36 years old, and I got enough courage to ask my dad. I just said, basically, it's really hard to hear these stories sometimes because I wondered where that dad was for me.
Wow.
And my dad waited about 30 seconds. I could tell it was thinking and really pondering what I said. And he came up with the most beautiful response. He just said, Kelly, I wasn't there yet.
Oh,
And a feeling of relief flooded over me.
truly.
I released all that resentment I was holding on to. And I realized, you're right. You were not that person yet. And I was holding you to that.
Wow.
So
And you wouldn't be able to do the work you're doing now without that
Oh.
experience.
you're right. So I was wondering, what if we could all just give each other a little bit of grace? Like that we can move beyond something we once were and not hold each other in a box where we harbor old past things and allow each other a little bit of space to grow.
That's right.
And what if I could just accept that? Then all that pain went away. So that was huge.
And what besides acceptance, what else are you covering?
Yeah. So the next one is honesty.
Honesty.
And what we see is a lot of people who are living out of alignment with who they really are. And they do this to pacify family members. It starts with family of origin. Like mom and dad wanted me to go into a certain career, go to a certain school, act a certain way, marry a certain person. And then we see people later in life that are married to one another. And we've had a client who, this man was feeling rather lonely and he wanted to go to church. And his wife said, I don't believe in any of that, so you can't go. We have, gosh, what else do we have? So, I have a client who's a yogi who works with crystals and healing, and her husband doesn't believe in any of that. And she said, but I feel this yearning. I want to do this healing work. And he said, no, this is not going to work for us. You can't do it. So what we see is people that end up stuck, stressed. It eventually turns into pain and illness. It shows up in different ways in the body. So it takes radical honesty to stand up for yourself and say, this is who I need to be. I have this deep calling within me. This is a non-negotiable. I need to do this for my life. And I love the way you guys started tonight's show, because it was like, what do you want to be? Write it down.
Who are you becoming? Exactly.
Who are you going to be?
Kelly, you and I were talking about this morning in yoga, and it really did hit me. That people don't want to take responsibility for doing their thing, to get ready, to do. They just want someone else to do it for them. And you really got to want to do it yourself and do it, right?
And this is where the challenge for me comes into the equation, which is applying all of these concepts or practices for ourselves. So radically accepting me exactly where I am, exactly everything I'm carrying with, being radically honest with me, really holding up that mirror. And the challenge is these beautiful bodies that we're in. Because these, to your point, I really am appreciative of.
Let's be a model. Is that what you're saying? I'm just joking.
Yeah, right. Well, I'm really appreciative you mentioned quantum, because the bodies we inhabit are an equivalent to a quantum supercomputer. And so they operate at about 500,000 times the capacity of our conscious mind. And these biomachines that we are in are programmed for safety, planning, and protection at all cost, regardless of what is going on in the conscious mind.
Interesting.
Because if our subconscious had its way, our subconscious would have its hand on the wheel at all times. And by the low grade states of fight, flight, freeze, we often find ourselves in, that is actually the configuration that's most often there, where our hands aren't even on the wheel. And so we're dropped into very defensive or resistant behaviors or expressions almost immediately, because our systems collectively, yeah. So the system's trying to keep us safe. And when we're talking about a communication, both systems are doing the exact same thing, but they're trying to keep their respective, energetic stewards or energetic conveyances, energetic sources safe, regardless of what's happening to the other, even if it is a loving marriage or relationship or partnership. And so for me, a big part of this whole practice is really turning that lens, to your point, James, about, being open to doing the work, being open to questioning the system, questioning, maybe I was not actually right. Maybe I was a little bit over the top with my reaction or my words or my tone. And this is the challenge and the opportunity.
Let me interrupt you by saying, you're very left brain. You're the most left brain person I know. You're very left brain. And for you to leave your career and do this, it's the same thing with me. I was working at Paramount Studios as sitcom writer, to do mediumship, not knowing when I was going to get paid, how I was going to get paid. Same thing you went through. You had trust. You had complete trust. And I give you everything, like a lot of respect for doing that. It's a hard thing to do, especially left brain people. That doesn't make sense, but you have to do it. It's in your soul.
And it really is there's another aspect of discernment there too. And Kelly and I were talking about this, as far as sometimes we get into a mode of speaking our truth or going with what feels like, yes, that's the right thing. And so there is that layer of excavation or clarity as well, where is my truth really a protection layer?
Like the ego?
That's keeping me safe? Is it an ego reaction, a spiritual ego reaction? Or is it actually, if I'm speaking my truth, it is balanced, it's empathetic, it's accepting, and it's honest.
Your true energetic self, like the soulful self.
Yeah.
Which part of you are you speaking from?
And it's, so James, to your point, when I had my experience, it almost was like, it was such an internal shift that I was almost revulsed from going back to just doing design, because I had just been kind of, ripped wide open, laid asunder and then put back together with love. And it's like, this is what you're doing now. And I was like, okay, cool. This is what I'm doing now. And thankfully at this point, Kelly and I had been in our process, on our journey, for 3 or 4-ish years by this point. So I had my experience on a Thursday afternoon, ended about 3:30. I went directly to her office and said, I shared what happened, and I said, and the whole spectrum of it, and I said, this is what I have to do now. I can't do anything else. And to Kelly's credit, she took a breath and she said, okay.
That is to your credit, Kelly.
100%.
True Kelly fashion.
Yeah.
I know, I work with her all the time.
Yeah. So,
and some people would rather stay safe. They'll say, well, I will just be with somebody who doesn't like me for who I am, just to not rock the boat, or just to not be alone, or just not to go out there in the wild world and see if I can make it by myself. So I'll stay with somebody who diminishes me, doesn't appreciate me, or doesn't even understand or accept the real me. So, I want to help empower people to step into that ownership of who they really are inside, but helping couples accept one another for who they are.
There's so much control in relationships. Can you talk about control when you're with somebody who's controlling? Because some people stay because of fear.
Oh my gosh. Number one, safety has to be met. So we can't even do higher level talking or thinking about these ideas until you have a roof over your head, you have food on the table, and your body is physically safe. Or even, sometimes even the emotional abuse can be worse than the physical abuse. So number one prerequisite is you've got to get safe. And if you're in a situation that's harmful, number one, before we'll even talk about this relationship stuff, is to be safe. So asking yourself, am I in a risky situation? Is my partner taking care of me, or is there physical, mental, or spiritual, any type of abuse going on, and getting you safe? Then we can start talking about this, which is letting go of some of those controls. What is it about? I want you to be more like me. And if you're not, I'll control you. Also, there's that imbalance. Like You'll see somebody that might be, we might term them a narcissist. That might be a person who's ultimately selfish. Who are they going to pair up with? Somebody who is ultimately selfless.
Absolutely.
Because it's an asymmetrical balance, but it does form a balance. And as that person who is selfless gains self-confidence, self-esteem, and self-worth, it's no longer a good fit. And that's okay. Sometimes relationships need to end.
Yeah, season, reason, a lifetime. A quick question. Sorry, Kelly. Quick question. Are your workshops, do you find that there are more partners that go or just singles or people that have partners at home? What do you find more of?
We've had all. We've had sisters. We've had spouses. We've had friends. We've had mothers take it solo. So it could be whoever
business
wants
partners,
to learn.
Business partners.
It can be that. We haven't had that yet, but we welcome all. It's like anyone that wants to learn to get along with a person in a way that's more open, accepting, receiving, and we teach communication. And that's the next thing I wanted to talk about is conscious communication.
Before you go there, Kelly, before you go there, relationship with yourself as well.
Oh my gosh, that's the main deal.
That's the first
that's
thing.
The main thing.
And that's what there's a healthy dose of that throughout these courses. And we do have two. We've got our relationship course and our living course, radical living, radical relationships.
Good.
So radical living is much more intrapersonal. It's very much focused on the self. Radical relationships it takes
keeps guiding
it through the
yourself.
self to the relationship, interpersonal relationships. So there's a healthy dose even in the relationship course of that there's that mirror, because the change will not happen out here. Change can only happen in here.
It's foundation.
So exactly.
And usually when we're experiencing something, it's because of some reaction that if I'm upset with him, it's some internal reaction that I'm having. It usually has nothing to do with him. It's how I'm perceiving something that's the story that I'm making up in my head.
Kelly, to your point.
In the middle of a workshop, it's like, hold on, I don't feel good. Hold on, I fucking be fine.
So Kelly, to your point about control, if there is a relationship between two individuals and control is a factor for one, and it's usually only going to be one, usually two people that are very controlling, it's almost like putting the same ends of the magnet together. They're going to just naturally not gravitate towards each other. If there's control, then a lot of times the individual controlling will not be in recognition that they are controlling. Because all control is an external expression of an internal perceived deficit.
True.
Internal dis-ease. So the reaction is, I need to control in order to feel safe, in order to feel loved, in order to feel worthy, in order to feel just, in order to feel, whatever, fill in the blank, whatever it is. And so part of the course is really pulling back the lens to get that broader view of the complexities and opportunities that come with relationships, because often we're so in it, we're so in those VR goggles, and our system is cheering us on. It's like, oh yeah, get her or get him, stay safe. Ooh yeah, that was a zinger. Remember that thing that happened 10 years ago? Use that because that'll keep us safe. And we're hardwired for it. And so this is really an exercise in coming back to our own wholeness, coming back to our own sovereignty, so that we can more equally, more healthily, and more abundantly connect with that aspect of others as well.
And I'm sure in Kelly White in your workshops as well as probably has happened. In my workshops it definitely has, where they sign up for one thing, relationship course, and then they leave with a whole different thing they have to relate with themselves.
Yes. Really talk about self-growth. Yes.
Yeah, the spirit knows. They'll always take care of you.
Right. Joanne Wilson says, today's my first day of true independence. Wow.
Oh my gosh.
Go you, Joanne. So glad to hear this from you both. I'm scared and excited. What can I do to start my independence with more wholeness, balance, and peace?
Yes.
That's so awesome. Congratulations, Joanne.
Joanne, scared excited is one of the most abundantly rich places we can be. And that is telling me that you have moved beyond those gatekeepers of your subconscious, of your fight, flight, freeze, of your limbic system, of your five senses. And it's like, okay, I get it. And now I'm going to do more. So, first of all, this whole thing, life, it's a practice. We're here practicing. So kind and gentle and a little bit of lightness for ourselves goes a long way. So that's number one. Anything that happens, a lot of times we'll have a predisposition to either blame ourselves or blame someone else. So what we teach and what we help people with is creating that space inside between a reaction and a recognition. So shortening the duration of being in a reaction, however it expresses itself, and getting to a place of recognition. Oh, that was a big reaction. I just got dropped into that. Because we do have this capacity of self-awareness, and that is a practice in and of itself as well.
Right.
So
it's no one else's fault. It's your fault. You're the one that's
like, what can she do right now,
Yes.
though? Just like experiencing this new state of being by yourself and that freedom.
Enjoy the heck out of it. It's just,
Right.
like,
Okay.
round of applause, pat on the back.
Yeah, no, it's
I
scary,
know.
Take-
really. Yeah, no, it's scary.
Take 20 nice, deep, full diaphragmatic breaths. Let it all out. If we're starting to work the practice of freedom and maintain that position, then it becomes about catching ourselves in reactions and playing those mind games, those mental exercises with ourselves of, oop, that was a reaction. Okay. And then there's tools we can use to get ourselves out of a reaction. Breath work is one. Real quick and easy. Easiest way, 2 short inhales through the nose, one short but powerful exhale through the mouth. Do that 5-10 times. You're not even going to remember what you're in resistance about. Physically moving, getting out in nature. That's another one. There's one that I guided everyone through in our last episode. Kelly did as well, I believe, and it's called a whole brain or a hookup posture. We're disrupting the electromagnetic field. We're bringing our left and right hemispheres back into balance. So we're not in a dominant hemisphere reactive state. Creating more observation of life as we live life is one of the most impactful vehicles or impactful tools that I've employed to really stick at that place of peaceful, balanced freedom more often than not. And then if we get knocked off, if we do get dropped in a reaction, then it's the game of recognition. Oh, okay, there it was. Yep, I was in it. Because recognition is where we get to choice. And we can only change once we've got some choices. If we're in it, we don't feel like we've got a choice. We feel like we're subjected to it. That nothing will ever change. Nothing will ever be different. And if that's our experience, that's literally what we will create for ourselves. So
there's a question here, Kevin, and Kelly, which is an interesting one. I'd like to hear your response. Sonia Callis Mitchum says, but you have to grow together. It can't always be perfect.
And it's not. And it's not always going to be growing together.
And you grow in your own way, right? You grow in your own way. And
it usually isn't, and it wasn't for us. When we started our journey and really said yes to this, I feel like I was a little bit more, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I was a little bit more in tune with what was going on inside. And I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to, and this was with the doctor who really kind of kicked us off on this whole thing, a Western MD who is also practicing a form of muscle testing and subconscious inquiry.
Well, I think it would be important to share just like 2 minutes of the story.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I think it's impactful, and it kind of kicked us off on this whole journey.
Kelly, you say it. You say it.
Some good context. Yeah.
So we've been together like 18 years, and we had our daughter was about 10 years old at this time, and she used to she'd get a little blemish on her face, and she'd pick it, and then she'd pick it again, so it'd become bigger, become like a little crater. And there were times where she'd have several, and it almost looks like chicken pox or something. And she'd come to us and say, you know, I don't know why I'm picking. I don't want to do this. I want to stop, but I can't. And I started doing research on different ways to handle self-harm behavior. What does that mean? Well, maybe it's usually it's somebody who wants to take care of themselves. So they do this behavior. So then we were getting her like this little healing salve, and she was putting it on her face. And at one point she had 3 on her legs and 4 on her face. And I have my friend who saw this emotional kinesiologist that helped her heal her back. And I said, why don't we take her into this doctor? He's 86-year-old emotional kinesiologist as well as an MD. And I brought her into the room with me, and in 7 minutes, he's just asking questions through a muscle test to get to the bottom of it and figure out what's going on. And he said, okay, is it something going on at school or something going on at home? And her body, through her arm, has said something that's going on at home. And he said, something going on with you and mom, or something going on with you and dad? No. Something going on between mom and dad? Yes, her body says. And he just keeps asking questions. Is it something they do with their body? Something they do with their mouth? Are they dancing? Are they singing? Something they do with their mouth. Okay, is it arguing? Is it yelling? Is it singing? And her body says arguing. So he said, okay, so mom and dad are arguing. And when mom and dad argue, how do you feel? And I think she knew this term even then. She said, I feel anxious. So he said, okay, mom and dad are arguing and you feel anxious and you pick your face. Yep. So he looked at me and he said, and he looked at her and he said, sweetie, is it okay if you go wait in the waiting room? And can I have the rest of the session with your mom? And I said, oh, S-H-I-T. I'm in trouble. So the rest of the session was about me. And he said, would your husband be willing to come in as well? And we had several relationship sessions together. And this guy has a way to ask your body what's going on to get to the root of what is the real issue. Because we would have said, nothing's wrong. We just argue semantics. It's fine.
We were so deep in denial that it was like, yeah, we're not even arguing. We're just we're discussing semantics, passionately, which was just lipstick on a pig.
But our daughter showed the symptom, and luckily we were willing to come in and do the work. And there were times, this is where like the subconscious comes into play, because he would ask, I would have thought, oh, if anybody's going to leave this relationship, it's me. I'm out of here. If you say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing, I'm out. And the doctor asked my body, and my body goes, no, that's not what's going on at all. And he would ask me a bunch of questions, and I'm like, I don't know. I'm trying to guess, but nothing's coming to mind. And finally, when we get to the root of the issue, which was something like, I am scared to death. And I feel unlovable, and I feel it's dangerous to love me. All of a sudden, the doctor looks at me and he goes, what's going on with your face right now, Kelly? And I said, water. And the doctor said, what is that called? And I said, crying, because I was so disconnected from what my body was trying to say, and what I would have paid $1 million to say, that's not the real issue. That's not what's going on. But my body started crying. Wow. And I had such a reaction to it that I couldn't dispute the truth that was coming out. Wow. And when I finally acknowledged the feeling that I had of being unlovable or feeling like it's dangerous to love me, then finally we could start healing.
Wow.
And the truth came out, and I recognized the power of the subconscious to try to keep me safe with all these stories I was creating. And really, this coupled with my friend's back healing was why I went into this work, because it was so powerful to get to the root of the real issue, to figure this out. And because Kevin was open and willing to go on this journey together, we started working on our marriage, and we started healing, and the real truth started coming out. And our daughter never picked her skin again after that day. She didn't need to, because we healed our marriage.
And also the 7-minute conversation, for her, it was the identification, because she couldn't put her finger on it. She couldn't identify what was causing this compulsion. And so it's, I don't know. And as soon as she identified, it was like, oh, that was it. Oh, it doesn't have anything to do with me. I can let that go.
Well, we stopped doing what we were doing.
Well, we got scared
arguing
straight and real quick by this doctor. And it was like, okay, we're on the hot seat. So let's go. And having our stuff affect her was a big impact for me as well, because I was like, well, it's like, oh, there are consequences outside of myself for the way I'm feeling on the inside and for the way I'm acting with Kelly. So getting back to the question, most times growth is not linear, and it's also not concentric. It's not going to be at the same pace or at the same time or at the same level. And
sometimes couples like to do different things, and
Absolutely.
That's okay.
Yeah.
They have different hobbies or interests.
Yeah.
But it's really about accepting one another.
Accepting one another. And if there is a disagreement, really, if one person in the equation has a little bit more awareness or a little bit more perspective, to just hold the space. just hold. And so a lot of times in a session, Kelly would be like just really up against the wall, an internal wall, and struggling. And I was like, I see what it is. I know what it is. And I didn't say a word because it was not my place and it was not my journey.
Right.
It was a self-realization, self-awareness, self-understanding path that we both have been on. So it's a challenge when we are in this place, either individually or together, and there's a lot of you language. There's a lot of finger pointing or accusing or defensive mechanisms.
Why do you do this? You're
Yeah.
making me do this.
Yes.
Pointing the finger outwards.
And that was really the first step for me, is stop pointing fingers
Right.
and just holding my space. And
taking responsibility, right?
taking responsibility for what I'm bringing to the table.
Right.
And and that was, and it's a practice. Again, this is like, it didn't happen every time right away. We've been doing this collectively for 6 years now, something like that.
And your relationship obviously has changed because of
Oh,
this.
it's, I mean, in the most amazing ways that I could have, it kind of got us a little bit more to that childhood, like, when I get married type of thought, that it's going to be perfect and we're going to get along great and everything's going to be amazing. And there's
a question for you guys. Martha Lopez, tattoo. Kelly, want to answer?
Yeah, where can we get this type of help? My husband and I do the same thing, and I feel our daughter is going through stuff too.
So this would be an emotional kinesiologist. There are different type of therapies that do that. I do something similar, but instead of trying to diagnose what it is, we just transform what it is. But we could get you in touch with this particular doctor if you want. There are body talk types of therapy. We have, what's some others that people can do? Emotion code therapy is a really good one. The psychological kinesiology, if you want to find somebody in your area. But
and they reach you first, Kelly. Your website will have all that, right?
You can go to innermostsherpa.com or radicalenlightenment.com, where we have information about the science behind this stuff. Absolutely.
Yeah. But
Go ahead,
Mary
Renee.
Bash has a question here. She says spouses need to be receptive to this. Mine refuses to go to the doctor, never mind counseling. What do you do in a case like that?
One person can create a change, because you're in this dance that can be destructive, or it's not helpful, but you two are in it together.
But also, Kelly, you're doing it for yourself, really. I mean,
Yes.
it's a relationship, but you got to be better for yourself.
Oh my gosh.
Sometimes you do. Souls grow different ways, different times. One soul in a relationship might grow, and the other might not. And you've got to do it for yourself too.
100%. And just one person gaining new insight, new skills, and new ways to be in the world can disrupt that pattern, because this person will try to pull you back into the old games that you play.
Right.
And you can say, no, I'm learning these new things. I'm not doing that anymore. And the person may even try harder than, because they go, this is the time we do this dance. And this is when you say that thing. And then I say this thing. And then you say that thing.
you're not following the script that we've been following for the last 20 years.
So even one person taking the relationship course, one person doing the inner work, one person becoming the space holder when you're dropped into a reaction can change the scenario. So in this case, it's accepting I'm with a partner who has no interest in this type of work. You can ask yourself, is this a deal breaker for me? If it's not, you can say, well, I can work on feeling good within myself. And sometimes just doing that, James, can transform the whole relationship, because then I'm not saying I need you to be a certain way so that I can be happy. I need you to do this thing so that I can enjoy my life. I'm thinking, how can I do it? And then all of a sudden, once I'm taking care of me, he's taking care of him, then it's just the icing or the gravy. And then it's like,
then we start taking care of each other.
What cool adventure do we want to have together? Because I don't need you to make me feel good. I feel good. I need myself to do that.
Sherry
And then
Pepper says, can we perform the emotional kinesis on ourselves?
Yes. We actually teach a self-muscle testing course. So that would be step one, learning how to self-muscle test, because then you can muscle test yourself and ask yourself questions. Am I experiencing...
You throw a little workshop in the workshop. You just
it's on radicalenlightenment.com. It's self-muscle testing. So once you can ask yourself questions, you can say, is the symptom I'm experiencing, is it emotional? Is it something that's going on that's physical? Is it the nutrition in my body? Is it my electrical system? So you can start asking yourself what's really going on. Or is the reason I'm so upset because something my husband said?
Right.
Is it because of Cheryl at work? Is it that man on the freeway? And your body will tell you yes or no. So you can get to the bottom of the issue.
Okay.
And it
More
really,
questions, I guess we have.
yeah.
Kelly, you want to pick
Okay, yeah. So
Sorry.
Tracy says, this is the
Oh.
first time my husband joined me for a Kelly and James show.
I saw
Perfect
that.
timing. So
Oh,
grateful
nice.
for Kelly and Kevin's insight. Thank you to all four of us.
It's
Thanks,
true.
That's great,
Thanks,
Tracy. I'm
Tracy.
glad he joined.
Aw.
Absolutely.
It's so
ahead,
interesting.
So at the base of it all, it really, Don Miguel Ruiz Jr. has a quote that I love, and it's that our responsibility ends at our fingertips. And I like to add to that and the responsibility within our form is implicit. The only person that can affect change of the outputs or what we contribute to the world is us.
It's true.
So if we are in a relationship and there's one component of that relationship, one member of that relationship who's controlling.
It's not filling you. It's not
Right.
filling you up. Right.
Right. There's control, or there's scarcity, or there's fear, or there's resistance. We can't fight it, because what you resist persists. So if you're resistant to resistance, that's just creating more resistance. So it's just
Accepting
exactly where they're at, and it's not necessarily it's not exactly accepting who they are, because a lot of these what we would interpret potentially as negative behaviors or negative expressions are conditioned and programmed within this form as safety. Again, safety at all costs, safety, planning, and protection. That's this operating system's modus operandi. It's its only operating imperative.
Kevin, let me interrupt you, because we're running out of time here, but I got a couple of things. I'm curious myself too. So doing 2-day workshop, right? It'll be a Saturday and Sunday. Is that right?
For us, we're doing 6 weeks.
Tell us more about the workshop and how people can reach you and so forth, please.
6-week practice series.
6
we
weeks,
meet
everybody. 6 weeks.
So it's information and practice for a week. So the practice video, the information video is delivered to the inbox. You go at your own pace.
You watch at your own time, because we have people all around the world at different times, so that you can watch the video, and then once a week we'll get together for live Q&A to answer real questions that are coming in. What's going on in your life? What's happening that we can help out with? If you can't be present for that, you could submit a question and we'll answer it, and we'll record all those videos and send those out to everybody. So it's live support every week, a new topic every week.
And then continuing support during the week in our private practice group that everybody's going to have access to who takes the course. And it's an additive approach. So we start with a foundation the first week, and then we add another. So we have a practice for the first week, and then we add a practice for the second week, and then we add perspective and practice for the third week. And so by the end of the 6-week course, you leave with a complete tool set of inside out relationship transformation functions, relationship transformation tools, how to, one, get our hands back on the wheel of this, so that we can actually communicate more consciously, more effectively, more compassionately with any relationship that we've got.
And one thing I noticed, which at my school, which is happening in yours, of course, which I think is incredible, is because these people have been through these 6 weeks, it brings you together. So there's a mindset that you have other people that belong in the same space, because it's a community. You're forming a community with the same like-minded people.
Going through a lot of similar things and realizing you're not alone.
Couples have grown together, and couples of couples have grown together and played off of each other, especially in the support in the online support group, where it's really more of a collaborative, and it's everybody's bringing their experiences to the table, and it's all valid, it's all helpful. And so the more perspective we can offer, the more we can share kind of our unique perspective and things that have worked for us, the more that everybody grows and evolves together.
Well, I mean, I've been around a long time, 40 years. I don't mean to sound weird about it, but I've been to Brazil. I've been to some incredible people, some healers and so forth, and in this world, in the United States. But you two, my life has changed because of you two, and I just want to share it
Aw,
with everybody.
James.
Kelly,
I can say the same thing. I've sent many people to both of you, and they all come back with life-changing experiences.
Thank you.
It's
Thank you. Thank you guys
somebody
for the
said,
work you do.
no, thank you
Very
both
much
as well. I mean, for the space and for the opportunity, and also for everything you've been doing your entire careers.
well, thank you. And anybody out there who's not watching, friends of yours, everybody who you think will help, please send them to the website. So
Absolutely.
really
Yes, please.
Yeah, we have a real good special going on right now too, because the investment is a 2-for-1. So if you want to
tell us
take it,
about that.
you can take it with your mom, you can take it with your sibling, you can take it with your spouse or friend.
Partner.
And
yeah.
we also have $100 off for the next couple of days until September 1st. So we have an ultra super deal right now, radicalenlightenment.com. And you can transform the way you interact with so many people in your life.
Yeah.
So we're
Just like
excited.
what you're saying about astrology, Kelly. Now's the time to change.
Now's the time. This is the
Yeah.
time. This is the time to
Absolutely.
become who you are to become.
I love
Divine
that.
timing.
Perfect. Well,
Yeah.
thanks everybody so
Thank
much.
you
Thank
very
you,
much.
Kevin. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you,
Thank
you
James.
both.
Thanks, Renee.
Thanks, Kelly. Thanks, Renee.
Thanks,
see
you
you next
guys.
time.
Thanks,
Bye.
everybody, for tuning in.
Bye.
Okay. Bye, everyone.
You've been listening to Both Sides Now and Beyond, featuring spiritual medium and master teacher James Van Prague and spiritual medium and psychotherapist Kelly White.
The James and Kelly Show.